Hello, in this lesson, we're going to cover rational inequalities, but before we do, we need to review polynomial inequalities because we will solve rational inequalities with the same method that we use for polynomial inequalities. So you have two ways to solve inequalities. The first is by graph, and then the second way is algebraically. So let's recall a graphic example when we solve the inequality of P of X is greater than 0. So take a moment to pause the video and copy this down. Here is my polynomial function. Here's its graph, whatever it may be. And I want to know when P of X is greater than 0. Well, this is function notation. And that's simply another way to say when Y is greater than 0. Well, I can see that on my Y, this is where my Y is greater than 0. That's where it's positive. It's negative down here. So I'm looking at everything that is on top of my x-axis. And so if I was writing this in interval notation, we would say negative infinity all the way up until whatever point A is. It's going to get a parenthesis because this is only greater than and not greater than or equal to. Because we have the two portions here, we will do the union. And then this portion here is from B to infinity. So solving these by the graph is pretty straightforward. You're looking either is it in the top of the x-axis, or if this was less than or equal to everything in the bottom of your x-axis. On the second one, we need to solve this one by algebra. So solve the inequality x cubed minus x squared is less than or equal to 12x. So first, you need everything on one side of the equation. So this is x cubed minus x squared minus 12x is less than or equal to 0. Okay, so now we need to solve. So first we're going to factor, and you're going to look, do I have a GCF? And I do in this one. It's x. All three of these terms have an x. So I will pull out an x, and that leaves me with x squared minus x minus 12 is less than or equal to 0. So now I can factor this remaining quadratic. My a times c is 1 times negative 12, and my b term is this negative 1. What multiplies to ac but adds up to b? And that is negative 4 and 3. Negative 4 times 3 gives me negative 12, but when I add those two numbers, I get a negative 1. Because this is an easy trinomial, I'll bring down my x, and this simply is what it factors to be. So this is x minus 4x plus 3. And now I solve for my three x-axes or x-intercepts. And I know I have 3 because that's what my degree is here. So this first one is simply x equals 0. This one, when I said x minus 4 equal to 0, you add your 4 over and you get x equals 4. And then you set this equal to 0, you subtract your 3 over, and we get x equals negative 3. Okay, so this gives me my points A and B. This gives me my x-intercepts here. Once we get that, we'll go over here to a number line. And I have a 0 at negative 3. I have a 0 at 0. And I have a 0 at 4. So we'll pick some test points. I can pick a test point here, something that is less than negative 3. So negative 4 would be the easiest one, most obvious one to do. Something in between this interval here, which between -3 and 0 is either -2 or -1. We need something in this interval. We could either do 1, 2, or 3. We'll just go to 2. And then we need something that's greater than 4. And the most obvious is the next one, which is 5. So these are my test points. So you take your test points and you plug them in. So when I have 4, or sorry, -4, I'm going to plug that into all 3 of these x's here. And when we plug these in, they've got to go in parentheses. When I plug this in, I don't really care what that number value is. What I care about is it positive or is it negative? Because positive is going to tell me it's above the x-axis, while negative tells me it's below the x-axis. So if you put that in your calculator, you get negative. So we're negative in this interval. Go to -1, 2, and 5. And you are plugging in everywhere you see an x. I'll write one more out. And here you should get a positive when you put that in your calculator. Do the same thing. So now replace your x with 2, replace this x with 2, this x with 2, and then replace all 3 of those x's down here with 5. And you should get negative and positive. Okay. So once we figure out our test points, now we go back up to the original. Okay, I want to know when this is less than 0. Well, less than or equal to 0, I guess, are these 2 negative portions here. So I want to describe this portion and this portion here. So this first portion is -infinity to -3, and this one will get a bracket because it's or equal to, and then bracket 0 to 4 with a bracket. You do need to understand how to do this, but in all reality, you can put this in your calculator and visually see what that graph's going to look like and where it is above and below. Okay, so if I put this in, we've got x cubed minus x squared minus 12x. You put that in. You go Windows standard. Nope, let's go Zoom standard. And here is my function here. So where is it below? Right here. And where is it below? Right here. And if you can solve these, then you will know that this is -3, 0, and 4. And so you can just kind of see where is it below.